All right, so today we're going to be looking at our warm up for today, our check in. Okay, we're going to be doing 2 problems for completing the square. Now, this is the process we started yesterday. Now, remember, our goal is to rewrite it so it's a squared binomial, so that way we can take the square root. That's our goal, so then we can solve it. So, if we look at our first one, it says get rid of the old c value. Here, our c value is negative 25, so to get rid of it, we're going to add the 25 over. Those will cancel, so I'll have x squared minus 10x is equal to 25. Now from here it says now we're going to add that new c value. Remember, our c value makes this the perfect square trinomial. This is where we have to do that b over 2 squared step. So our b value here is a negative 10. So we have negative 10 divided by 2 squared. Our negative 10 divided by 2 gives us negative 5 squared. Remember that negative 5 is super important. We're going to be using that later. And then negative 25 is equal, negative 5 squared gives me 25. So that's going to be my new c value, and we have to add it to both sides. So when we rewrite this, we'll have x squared minus 10x, then we add our c value, so plus 25, is equal to 25 plus our new c value, 25. So we brought down that c value, moved it down, and then we added our new one. Okay, so now it says we're going to factor the perfect square trinomial. This is now our perfect square trinomial, so we're going to factor it. We want to think what adds to give me negative 10, but multiplies to give me a positive 25. Remember how I said this number was important? Well, guess what? Negative 5 and negative 5. So we're going to rewrite it as x minus 5. X minus 5 is equal to, we're going to simplify this. 25 plus 25 gives me 50. Oops. We're going to write that as a binomial squared. Remember, this is just where instead of writing this twice, we're going to write it as x minus 5 squared is equal to 50. At this point, we have completed the square, so now we just need to solve it. Now remember, we've talked about this before, but if you're starting to really kind of skip this step and kind of skip down here, that is totally fine, as long as you remember to add your c value to both sides. All right, so now we're going to solve by square rooting. So we're going to square root both sides. So the square root and the square cancel each other out. So I'll have x minus 5 is equal to the square root of 50. We have to break down the square root of 50. Okay, 50 breaks down into the largest perfect square that goes into 50 is 25. So I have 25 and 2. So I'll have x minus 5 is equal to the square root of 25 is 5. So I'll have plus or minus 5 square roots of 2. We can't take the square root of 2, so that's why it just stays put. Now we need to add the 5 over. So we'll have x is equal to 5 plus or minus 5 square roots of 2. You cannot combine those because that's a plus and minus, and it has a radical, so they just don't go together. Okay, so don't combine the 5s. Last but not least, we have our solution set we need to write in curly brackets. So we're going to have 5 plus or minus 5 square roots of 2. All right, guys, this right here is the process for solving by completing the square. If this is not what your homework looks like, then that means you have done it completely wrong. Okay, so you need to go back and check. Also, guys, I give you the step-by-step instructions. You 100% can do this. You just need to follow the steps, read the directions, follow the steps, and you can definitely do the homework. Okay, so don't just give up on it. You can get this done. So looking at part B. Step number 1 says get rid of the old c value, so we're going to add the 34 over. That cancels out, so x squared plus 8x is equal to 34. Now we need our new c value to make this a perfect square trinomial. So this is where I have to use that b over 2 squared equation or expression. So our b value is 8, so we're going to have 8 divided by 2 squared. 8 divided by 2 gives me 4 squared. Remember, that's going to be our important number. And then 4 squared is 16. So we are going to add that to both sides. So when we rewrite this, it's going to be x squared plus 8x plus 16 is equal to 34, plus 16. So now we need to factor the perfect square trinomial. So we need to think what's going to add to give me 8, but multiply to give me 16. Well, remember how we said this number was important? That's the number we're looking for. So it's going to be 4 and 4. So we're going to have x plus 4, x plus 4 equals, got to simplify that, 34 plus 16 gives me 50. Oh, hey, look, it's 50 again. Did not mean to do that. So next we have to write it as our binomial squared. Anytime we see the same number twice, we're just going to rewrite it as x plus 4. X plus 4 squared equals 50. So from here, we've completed the square. Now we just have to solve it. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. The square root and the square cancel each other out. So I have x plus 4 is equal to the square root of 50. We have to simplify that. Well, we just said the square root of 50 is just plus or minus 5 square roots of 2. So I have x plus 4 is equal to plus or minus 5 square roots of 2. Subtract the 4 over. We'll have x is equal to negative 4 plus or minus 5 square roots of 2. Now we need to write it in our solution set. So negative 4 plus or minus 5 square roots of 2. Alrighty. Like I said, this is what your homework has to look like. If you don't have all the boxes filled out, if you don't have those exact steps, every single box should look exactly the same except for different numbers. So please make sure you're checking your work. Alrighty, moving on. Look at the next one. It says, what are the factors of the following? 3x squared minus 10x minus 8. This is where factoring. Our a value is not 1, it's 3. So that means we need to do our slide, factor, divide, and swing steps. So we're going to slide the 3 down to the negative 8 and multiply. So I'll have x squared minus 10x, maybe. And then 3 times the negative 8 gives me negative 24. So now I need to think what's going to add to give me negative 10. But when I multiply, I get negative 24. Hopefully you're thinking negative 12 and 2. So now we're going to rewrite it as x minus 12 and x plus 2. Do not get fooled and think you can stop there. You're not finished yet. So now, if you slide with the 3, you got to divide the 3 back out. So then we have to reduce our fractions. So we'll have x. Negative 12 divided by 3 gives me negative 4. 2 over 3 doesn't reduce, so we swing the bottom up. So it's going to be 3x plus 2. And those are my factors. I got a factor of x minus 4 and a factor of 3x plus 2. Alrighty. Last but not least, it says solve the following. We have x squared minus 8x equals 0. Guys, anytime we need to solve, the first thing we're going to look for is can we factor it? Well, if we look at this, x squared and negative 8x do have a greatest common factor. So we're going to take that out first. They both have a GCF of x. So the x is going to hang out front, and then we're going to put our leftovers back on the inside, and we'll have x minus 8 is equal to 0. So now we can take all of our pieces and set it equal to 0. So we're going to have x is equal to 0, and x minus 8 is equal to 0. Well, x is equal to 0 is the solution, and then we got to add the 8 over. We'll have x is equal to 8. So my solution set is 0 and 8. Alrighty, guys. If you have any questions, please make sure you're asking. If not, you can move on to your next activity.